Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm Michael LeBlanc, NRF Top Retail Voice for 2026 and Rethink Retail 2026 Top Retail Expert. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Matthew, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. We're here live in the Narvar podcasting studio at the Big Show in New York. How are you?
There you go. Thank you. It's great. This is my Super Bowl given my role, so I'm happy to be here. Maybe so global it's the World Cup, but love it.
Something like that. So listen, this is not great coincidence. Zebra reached out to me and said, hey, how'd you like to have a conversation? And you and I actually knew each other. We co-presented or presented together at the Blue Star event earlier this year. So it was such a treat to see your name, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I was impressed with your presentation there, and knew exactly who they were talking about when they suggested your name. So, yeah, very happy to be here.
Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes it clicks, right?
Exactly.
Who are you, and what do you do for a living?
Sure. My name is Matthew Guiste. I'm Global Retail Strategy for Zebra Technologies. My role is really to think about what are all the big problems retailers need to solve, and how can Zebra Technologies help do that? If we can't do it yet, what are the new capabilities we need to buy, borrow, build, or partner with to get there?
Right on. So tell us about Zebra, scope, scale. I mean, many listeners would know Zebra, but maybe not all. They might not know your history. Just give us the 411 on Zebra.
Yeah, Zebra overall is it's a 55-year-old company. Just to give you a little bit about scale and size, a little over $5 billion of revenue, 10,000 employees. Retail is our biggest vertical, but we also have products across healthcare, manufacturing, a bunch of other spaces as well. And what we make are really mobile computers, tablets, RFIDs. The name Zebra comes from barcode scanning. So we're a 55-year-old company. We're one of the pioneers of barcode scanning. So
that's how I think of you, like a handheld scanner. That's
exactly.
I do a bunch of store tours, and so many associates. Where was I in the last one? And they've got a Zebra device in their hand, and they're scanning, the POS and scan. Oh, it was a Target.
Yep.
They were doing a price check for me. Yep. And I looked down, it was a Zebra device, handheld device with the associate.
Yeah, most major retailers will have those devices in their employees' associates. I look for them everywhere. Some of the fun places I've seen them, when you get your bags, when you go through the airport and someone's scanning your bag, that's usually a Zebra scanner. My favorite one, though, was the Colosseum in Rome. Literally, the Colosseum, the person scanning my ticket had a Zebra scanner all the way over in Italy.
So global company. There's likely no country that you're not in some way, shape, or another.
Yeah, almost none.
Fantastic. And where are you guys based?
We're just outside of Chicago, Illinois, is the headquarters, and but there's offices, as you say, on every major country.
You have a Toronto office.
We do.
Yeah,
Mississauga office. Mississauga. Sorry, yeah, you would know how to say that better than I do.
Mississauga. So you mentioned this is your Super Bowl. What brings Zebra here? I mean, there's the obvious. You're going to go where your customers or prospective customers, but you also do some other stuff, right? So what do you do when you get here, and you probably not your first show. What's your trade craft? What do you do when you arrive?
Yeah, I measure my Zebra tenure by NRFs, and this is 4, so that's how long I've been here. But for us, it's really around what are the new innovations, what are the new products, what are the new answers. This year we have just an embarrassing number of a whole refresh of our mobile computer line, new scanners, new RFID tools, 3 new wearables. But no surprise, our biggest story this year is about AI. I know you're shocked. I can see it on your face. You didn't see that coming.
Can't spell retail without AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this year, it's been really interesting to watch the evolution. 2 NRFs ago, we had an AI booth. It was kind of in the corner. It was informed by some customer data, but it was just kind of our stuff. Last year, we had a customer talking about AI in our booth, but it was under development. This year, AI is throughout the entire booth, and we have multiple customers in the booth sharing their story about AI. That's one really interesting thing when I walk around the other booths at NRF. Zebra has actual customers here. This time we have Total Wine, we have Lowe's Home Goods, and it's their employees in our booth telling the AI story of what we built together. So it's really it's so much more impactful to have the customer's own employees and associates saying, here's how I do my job better with AI because of what we built with Zebra.
Now, can we talk about that a bit? I can't imagine an organization like yours, very technologically savvy, hasn't been working with AI in some way, shape, or form for many, many years. I mean, it's really upon us because of agentic, and it's in the consumer mind now. Some crazy number of people are using AI, but you guys likely have been using advanced technology for many, many years, right?
Yeah, decades, I would say.
Yeah.
We have such a diverse set of products. The machine learning form of AI, we've been doing that forever. What we've really honed in on, though, in the last couple of years, as that explosion, as you described it, has happened, is where our place is AI for the front line. So how does Zebra build AI capabilities that make an associate's job faster, better, easier, and more fun? So, if you think of nothing about Zebra and AI, that's the one headline, is Zebra is the one that powers frontline AI and making their jobs better.
Recently, you guys published some pretty comprehensive research, not your first research document, 18th annual Global Shopper Study. Now, I want to talk about the tradecraft of that study. What is it, and why do you do it, and what's the scope and scale, and how do you go about doing the study?
Yeah, so that's research I look forward to every single year. As you mentioned, we've been doing it for years. What we do is we survey about 4,300 employees, associate and frontline workers, decision makers in the corporate office, and then customers. And what's cool about those audiences are one, we can ask the same question over time to get trends. So one of the things that we've asked for quite a while is, do you like self-checkout? Pre-COVID, 2019, 75% of people said no, they do not like it, 25%
Now when you say people, are you talking shoppers or developers? Or
shoppers in this case.
Shoppers in that case.
In 2022, the same question flipped. So 75% of shoppers said they now like self-checkout, only 25% do not. Since that time, it's even grown. So we can see over time if how trends are happening across those audiences. We can also then ask the same question to different audiences and see what happens. So you might find blind spots where maybe the retail decision makers, those at head office, think one thing, but consumers think another. Then we can parse all that data because of the size of the sample by age group and by geography. I would say my biggest headlines there are, you would think, based on sort of popular culture and stereotypes, that there'd be a huge difference in technology acceptance between, say, a Gen Z and a boomer. I'd say what I find reading the study is it's not as much as you'd think. It's a little bit of a counter to that, yeah, there might be some differences in how much they want this or that technology, but it's not nearly as much as the stereotype would have you assume.
I want to get back to this self-checkout thing, because it is a very popular topic and there's lots of energy around it.
Sure.
In one of my other podcasts, we talked about the failure of self-checkout, that it has not been, it's been around a long time, and my general consensus is I thought it would be farther ahead than it is today. Sometimes that's an execution issue. I had one, the label's just put on improperly by the associate, and then that's it doesn't work. But then the whole experience collapses on top of me, right? Because now I need some help.
Yeah.
And, the associate's busy. What my observation is, I'm just kind of riffing on this a little bit, my observation is the associates are very, very busy in the self-checkout area handling trouble. I thought we'd be farther ahead. And it's not always a technology issue, but sometimes it's a basic execution issue. Or when you talk to your clients and when you talk to retailers, what do you say? Like, listen, keep with it. Have the faith. You got some research here that customers like it. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's a super fascinating topic because checkout was essentially the same for 100 years.
Sure.
It was invented in the 1910s, and then for 100 years it was the same. And then the last 5 years or so, 10 years, have really been about experimentation. I think the economics of the retail business require us to get to self-checkout that works. Sometimes I drop this technical term, self-checkout that doesn't suck, because we need to get to where you have a good experience there. Yeah. Part of it is they're still fine-tuning those rules about engagement, and they're sort of figuring that out. But the two things that I think are going to help us are, one, it's a collapsing of checkout with computer vision. So now you're going to have tools and systems that can tell you much more likely and with much more accuracy if you're checking out the right things, if you made errors, if you're trying to steal something.
I was going to say the made errors, that's a very polite way of saying, it's a high theft environment now.
So actually most of the retailers that I talk to, their biggest problem is errors. Yes, there's some checkout, but they'll tell me, hey, if someone wants to steal something, they just walk out the front door. They don't often bother to go through the checkout and pretend and do a charade that they bought it or not. But it's often just errors. And even there are often errors in the store's favor, that they'll scan something twice or make errors that way, but that still messes up their inventory system, so it's not a good thing. So I think having RFID in the checkout experience, having computer vision in the checkout experience, those things are both going to make that a lot better and get you to that checkout nirvana that you're looking for.
I like that, checkout nirvana.
We're getting there, but you're right, it's taken a while.
Yeah, and is there any research, any parts of your research that talks about consumers' perspective? Because I find, as I've been talking about self-checkout with the industry for 20 years, on behalf of the industry to media and consumers, it initially started as, we don't like it necessarily because we think it's taking jobs from my neighbors. That's kind of like transformed into, we don't like it because you're just downloading the work to me. Like there's, hey, that's your job, that's not my job. And I think, we've maybe overcorrected or undercorrected as an industry, too many self-checkout, not enough self-checkout. But anything in the survey that kind of popped for you about consumer perceptions? You gave me some numbers, but is there any kind of qualitative sense that you have about that?
Yeah, the right answer really depends on the type of retailer they are, which vertical they're in. A grocer is going to necessarily be different from an electronics store.
Sure.
And the brand promise, so different retailers have different perspectives there. But what I find from the research, to answer your question directly, is a lot of consumers want simple and fast and easy transactions. And so they want tools that help them do that. Buy online, pick up at store can be an answer there. A kiosk as part of the checkout experience can be an answer there. Or a self-checkout that is, has the right level of intervention and has the right level of experience. But yeah, that's what they're really looking for is speed often.
Yeah, that's a good answer, kind of that nuance. Depends. It depends a little bit, and it generally does. Staying on the same kind of theme, is there any insight as to what's the biggest disconnect between what shoppers expect and retailers are actually able to deliver? And it feels like we're in a bit of that zone now with AI. It's like, I've been hearing all this AI stuff can make the experience better. It's not always the case.
Expectations are rising. But
right,
yeah.
Expectations are rising. What's that delta between operational capabilities, practically, and customer expectations? Are you seeing that gap expand or contract?
I think in a lot of ways it's getting better, but there's one area that I think causes more disconnects than anything else, and that's simply this: where's my stuff? Inventory position, where exactly. If you think about omni-channel, it really requires you to know not just that you have an item or it's here, or you have to know if it's in the back of the house, the front of the house, where all those things kind of break down. And there's been some progress on it, but the average inventory accuracy is 60 to 70%, depending on which research you look at. That's not the Zebra research I was mentioning, but just overall analyst research.
Industry research, yeah.
And so if you have that level of inventory accuracy, but you're trying to promise things like pick it up in half an hour from the front desk, it makes it really challenging and sets you up for disappointment. A lot of times what retailers do is they actually do the other thing where they have it in stock, but they have a safety in there.
The safety
so they
floor,
say it's not. They say we don't
Anything
have
under
it.
2, assume it's not there.
Assume it's 0, so they kind of they can miss on both sides because they really want to avoid you thinking it's there, driving all the way down, and then finding out that it's not. But I think that's the single biggest area that causes disconnects between what the retail decision makers say in our survey think is going well and what consumers say is happening in their reality.
You mentioned RFID. I was in a session this morning. We were talking about RFID and this exact issue, this in-store pickup. And the point made by my friend Ken Pilot was like, even if you cut half of that away, like you actually, you raise that floor to 1, and then you've got a magnificent increase. But it takes really RFID, because it could be somewhere else in the store. I don't think of you guys in the context of RFID, but tell me, you mentioned it before, what do you guys do in that space?
So RFID is the hottest 20-year-old technology in retail.
Right.
And it's so hot because, 3 things have changed. 1, the cost of the tags went from dollars to pennies.
Yep.
2, there's a lot of sourcing mandates now. What that means is that retailers, like the one in Arkansas, is saying you can't ship these manufacturers, you can't ship to my store in these categories unless they have an RFID tag, which kind of helps everybody. And 3, retailers realize that, hey, if I have it in my store for this purpose, say for inventory position, well, now I can light up my checkout. Now I can light up a connected fitting room much more easily. Zebra's role in that is really around the sensors that capture the data. We have a huge portfolio of mobile readers, so you can just point and click and get suddenly 100 items all at once. They can also have things like a Geiger counter to walk you in if you're trying to find that buy online, pick up in store, and it's a particular set of jeans and a particular size and color. It knows, because the RFID signal knows not just that it's a pair of jeans, but exactly what pair it is. It can just use audio cues to find
Geiger
you to
counter.
get to that. Yeah, basically, with an audio cue to tell you you're getting closer, like hotter, 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 kind of thing. And then we have fixed readers overhead. So we're moving to things not where you have to walk around and do it, but that the overhead readers are telling you where it is in real time all the time.
I think a lot about, in the context of AI, the improvement of the customer experience is mostly going to be through the improvement of the employee experience, enabling them to deliver just a better experience. As you see people roll out technology in the store, what are retailers doing right, and what are retailers could improve on?
The most important thing retailers can do when it comes to technology is get the right technology in the hands of more employees. Sometimes I explain it like this. Imagine you went to one of, a corporate job and you went into the department and they said, hey, well, welcome here, but we have 100 employees, but we only have 15 laptops and you have to share and you have to work. We'd be much less active, right? So the retailers that are moving the needle on that, they're giving their employees 4 things. One is a device. Second is a task engine to help them figure out what to do next. A communication platform. And then fourth, it's some way to see the world. It's a scanner, it's a computer vision, it's an RFID, some way to interact with things in the world. But if you give your associates those just 4 things, as many as you can on shift at once, you're going to light up a whole bunch of things you can do. The leverage you get from just those 4 things is absolutely massive in terms of enabling customer experiences.
I've heard it say that the associates can have in any one store up to 40 different applications that they got to manage. And
100%.
that there's a call to kind of, and maybe it's an AI, maybe AI becomes more of a platform that kind of harmonizes all these different systems from, what your tasks is in the store to all these things. Is that the way you guys see it as well, that there needs to be some kind of consolidation? And I think that was the first of those 4 key elements.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in our booth today, we have Total Wine there, and that's kind of exactly what they're showing, is they have, it's called Zebra Companion, and it enables them to do a whole bunch of different things in the same interface. Now, behind the scenes, this agent, A2A is what they call it, agent to agent, is talking to other agents and making a lot of things happen. For example, when they're receiving products, one of the processes now is they can open up the camera for that device, take a picture of like 10 barcodes all at once, then they can take a picture of the the packing list, and it uses OCR, optical character recognition, to pull in what's supposed to be there, and then it compares the 2 for the associate. And so all of that's happening in the same in one in one user experience, but it's all behind the scenes making those connections. Then they can turn around and have a customer question about which wine pairs with a certain meal, and without leaving that same app, they can have that conversation with a chatbot that can give them the answers based on that product information. But yeah, where your thoughts are going are exactly what the retail worker needs, is fewer interfaces, fewer UI, UXs, and something that ultimately doesn't have to get trained. That's what our customers tell me. You know what a good UI is? Something I don't have to train my associates to use.
Do you see a disconnect at all? I think you kind of mentioned this in the research, or I picked up on it, that they think they're doing a little better than the consumers would rank them. Like, do you see a disconnect between how retailers perceive their technology stack and what it is there to accomplish versus how consumers are experiencing their stores?
There were a few. There were a couple of areas like returns, omni-channel experiences, like knowing if something is available, my ease getting through the checkout, all those things. There were some areas where, the retail decision makers, the head office people had a higher score that they gave themselves than the customers did.
Interesting. Sometimes we default and talk about big retailers and technology that's accessible to them. So what? As you think about, not everybody has the access to the funds or the scale or the scope. How do you, as a retailer in the mid-size, even small indies, kind of still have a great technology stack and use, your product, another product, and still be effective?
A lot of those still apply. We have a huge range of products with different capabilities and different price points. So, still getting more tech density, let's call it, in your stores, having associates have more of those tools is still a highly leverageable, almost any size of retailer you can be, because it just lights up so many things, from receiving things to engaging with customers. You can get checkout on that same device if you want to do line busting. So you might not be able to have all of those features and functionality. Sometimes, though, it makes it a little easier, because one of the things that huge retailers have is legacy systems that could be 30 years old, that are from all different eras and types. And sometimes smaller retailers, it's a little bit easier. The complexity of their initial systems are a little lower, so it's a little bit faster for them to get some of these things up to speed.
I've heard it say that the fleet can only move as fast as the slowest boat.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right?
And a huge retailer is a big oil tanker. It's a fleet of oil tankers, and a smaller retailer might be a little more on the speedboat side, so they might be a little bit more maneuverable sometimes.
I had some retailers tell me that one of the kind of big unlocks for them is using satellite internet technology, and they're able to go into their more remote stores, because we all assume, those of us who live in metropolitan areas, that everybody's got high speed, but by the time you get out of the metro areas, anywhere in North America, that starts to degrade, and you need a lot of horsepower in the stores to run, I imagine, some of the things you're describing, right?
Yeah, whenever I talk to retailers about anything, I say they get real practical real fast. They're talking about cloud costs and compute costs, and they're talking about connectivity, and they're talking about all of those installations and training. For us, how we've tried to address that is to make as much as possible be on the device. So a lot of the things that we're building for AI, whenever possible, we want it to happen on the device itself. So really fine-tuning language models, only making them as big as they need to be, building capabilities that are as light and efficient as possible.
Because you've got to be careful. You could start running up some costs in the cloud pretty quick, right?
That is the first conversation we usually have. And where does the processing, where does that AI magic happen? Is it on the device? Is it in the store, or is it in the cloud? And the closer it is to the device, usually the cheaper it is from a compute perspective. And so we try to do as much as possible there for them.
Let's talk about returns. I actually love talking about returns because quick fun story. I was with the Shopping Channel in Canada, and we're part of a big communications company, right? So they don't really know much about retail. So they said, how do I come and learn your business? Should I sit with your merchants or watch the show? It's kind of like a QVC. And I said, no, come to the returns area. Yeah. You'll know everything you want to learn about this business. And being a catalog originally or an online, and the returns were in the double digits, but that's acceptable. And they're like, but think about that. That's a lot of product coming back to manage. What's your perspective on returns more broadly? I see it, every return is an opportunity for a better relationship if well handled. They can be a strategic advantage. How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. They are a huge opportunity. There's usually a handful of topics that are really hot topics in retail, and I think returns management this year, reverse logistics of all that, is a huge piece of it. And it's really grown in complexity because you used to buy something in the store, you returned it in the store, and they had a process. You bought something online, you shipped it back, they had a process. But now that's all mixed and matched, and so the complexity has skyrocketed. One of the things we're trying to do is give associates tools to, one, better disposition that item in the moment and figure out what to do with it. Can I take this return? Do I need a receipt? But then also, what do I do with it afterwards? Can it go back on the floor? Does it go back to do I throw it away? Giving them rules to help all that happen. And then finally, just trying to
say more about that from the technology, because I have a fair bit of experience in this, and you'd have rules, inspected, and some stuff, can go back for sale if it's like a handbag that's barely used and inspected. Other stuff, there's a firm rule it's got to go. So there's some business rules that sit on top of the technology. What's your role in that as a technology provider?
Yeah, a good example of that in the booth, we have a partner called Peak Technologies, and we have a computer vision system that you take the item, you set it there, and it knows what the item is, and then can disposition. So a lot of times the people doing those jobs are pretty new to the organization, or they might not be the longest tenured employees. They might not know everything, especially if you think about a major sporting goods retailer, for example, just the variety of items, the right of condition of items. Well, that has all of that built into it, so it can look at that and tell you, do I need a receipt? What do I need to do with this? Can it go back on the floor and kind of answer those questions using an AI computer vision overlay to support some of those decisions?
Yeah, it's interesting you say about tenure, because we actually put in the warehouse the most tenured people in returns.
Might be smartest way.
Right, because returns fraud is a thing. We need inspection. We sold some jewelry or prestige beauty, right? Scoop out the expensive stuff, substitute with something else, and that experienced eye would know where to look for the trouble, or know where to just say, and maybe it's interesting because you combine computer vision and AI, and maybe that's an aid for even the most experienced operator, right? In the returns.
It should at least make it faster.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, it's a interesting idea to put those people there, because that is a point of profit gain or loss. It is a point of differentiation, and the returns fraud is a huge piece of it. Now I get a lot of retailers asking me or telling me just the lengths that sometimes customers or organized retail crime will go to try to get, sometimes I just think, isn't it easier to just have a job than work this hard? Like, they're making fake, iPhones that look like real iPhones but aren't inside. Like, that just feels like a lot of work, but anyway.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's why you're right, actually, about the economic impact is, once you peel it back, you're like, I can really make, it's hard to get, if you're an online store, it's hard to get a couple of percentage improvement in the checkout flow. That's hard work, right? Whereas if you get 0.5% better in returns, it's real money, real cash money, right?
NRF put out a number that there's $106 billion of return fraud in the U.S., so... Right.
I want to get your advice to the retailers listening about productivity in the stores. If you had a magic wand and you could bequeath upon them, there's a lot of things they could do, many options. What's that one thing you would recommend they do to really enhance productivity on the sales floor?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's really kind of what I said of just increasing the technology density in the store and giving the associate the tools. One thing I really love about that too is yes, there's this sort of instant improvement in the productivity or those kind of metrics, but the other thing is it's a retention tool. In that survey that we mentioned, talking to associates, 9 out of 10 said they feel better about the company that employed them if they get the right tools to do their job. So whatever that tool looks like for your associates, it is a force multiplier. And it makes them more likely to want to stay and work for you longer, which is better for you and better for retailers in a bunch of ways.
So if you and I were sitting, the last question for you, if you and I were sitting in this booth 10 years from now, I'm going to put 10 years from now, because you're a big thinker, you're a strategy guy. What's different? Would we recognize the retail sales floor? What do you expect to be there that isn't there today from your perspective? And not just the technology footprint and the experience of the customer and the associates 10 years from today.
Yeah.
What do you expect to see?
I got things that are going to go away and things that are going to be here.
All right.
Things that are going to go away are kind of all things paper and plastic. So physical receipts are going to go away, credit cards are going to go away, cash is going to go away. I think any of those vestiges, if you're using paper in the back room, most of that will go away. Excel will go away. All those sort of manual processes are going to start to disappear. On the what's coming, I think you're going to have, let me just illustrate it this way. I think when an associate 10 years, they'll have maybe a lapel pin. And as they walk around, they're talking to a customer, it's looking over the shoulder and seeing where the stockouts are. It's listening for when there's orders that are coming in. And it's realizing I have to do a stock out and I have to get something for a buy online order. It's routing the right route. So you finish that and it tells you what to do next. So right now we are humans who use machines to help do our jobs. We're going to be machines who have humans that help implement some of those jobs in 10 years. So, but in a way that I think will make what I think that sounds negative. I don't mean it that way, because what it's going to let you do is be able to do what you really want to do as a retail associate, which is interact with customers, talk to customers, and really enjoy that. So,
and really add some value. I mean, it's been in our lifetimes, where the beginning of my career, as yours as well, probably the associate knew way more than the customer. Now that that's flipped, right?
Flipped,
so
yeah.
it's a big difference.
In one of our AI deployments, the person implementing it said, "Finally, my associates will know as much as my customers."
So that's 10. So that's 10 years. Today, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do and Zebra?
Zebra.com is kind of the easiest way to learn more about it. You can find me, Matthew Guiste, under LinkedIn.
Well, listen, thanks for joining me here live in the podcast studio, making time to fit me in. It's no doubt a very busy time for you, and it's great to see you again and have the opportunity to have conversations.
Same. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.